Hi, and welcome back to art class. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your art projects. The last few weeks, we've done some work with fibers, with yarn, and with beginning stitches for weaving. This week, we're going to do something a little bit different. Previously, we've used those texture sheets in some of your classes. Here, I'll show you one. Remember these? We used these in some of your classes when we did the Van Gogh sunflower inspired works. You put them under paper, you do a rubbing on them, and it picks up the texture. Everyone seems to really like those, so I thought it'd be great if we could do a project with these, except that probably none of you have these at home. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna make our own. I spent quite a bit of time experimenting with how to do that. And I think I have a couple of really good ways to do it. I was actually pretty surprised at how good they turned out. So before we do that, let me give you a little bit of a list of supplies so that you can look at them and go get them together. And today we'll be working on texture. That is one of the principles of art. It is a way that we use, it's a set of language that we use to describe art. Is it smooth? Is it soft? Is it wavy? And then you can have implied texture, which is usually a patterning. So just so that we all have the stuff we need, I'm going to turn on the dot cam so you can see the list, okay? Once you see that list, please pause the video and go get the stuff you need, because it'll be just much easier if you start with everything you need, okay? There we go. All right. So today we're doing a texture style guide. You need paper. You need 6 pieces of paper. Normal paper is fine if you like a printer paper. If you don't have that, notebook paper will work just as well. Scissors, glue, like Elmer's glue, and or tape. So let's go through this again. Here we go. 6 pieces of paper. Tape, whatever kind you have, and glue if you've got both of them. If you've got a couple kinds of tape, that's great. You'll probably enjoy experimenting with multiple kinds, all right? So those things. See if I can get it all in the frame for you. There we go. All right. A ruler. A pen or pencil, probably a pen if you have it. A crayon or part of a crayon. We need a small crayon. Not this week, but next week you'll need a little bit of dental floss or string, just about that much of it. And you will need, if you have any note cards, like little line note cards, you'll need probably about 8 of them. If you don't have any note cards, that's okay. I'll show you how we're gonna get around that, all right? So it can already have stuff written on it. It doesn't matter at all if it does. I'm reusing a couple of cards that I have that have stuff on it. All right, so let me put these all back in here so that I have them when I need them, ready to go. Hopefully you have something that you keep your art supplies in. All right, so let me show you what we're making. When we are done, you will have something that looks somewhat like this. All right. Now, what is a texture style guide? Okay, well, I told you when I started that in a previous position, I designed textiles. I designed the patterns and prints, so the flowers or the plaid that went on clothing. So I worked as an illustrator for a fashion company. Now, when I did that, I would get assigned things like, all right, develop a small floral print that's a ditzy style. It's a certain kind of print. And I'd have to make a little sample of it and say, okay, this is what I propose we would put on this garment. And I'd usually have to have 4 or 5 per garment. So when you put those all together, a whole bunch of them, you would call it like a texture style guide or a sample book. So that's what we're going to call it. Now we're calling it a texture style guide because what we are going to do is make some of our own texture sheets. I don't know if you can see. I used glue, just basic Elmer's glue on paper. Let me see if I can get you one that shows up better. Here's one I made with just tape on a note card. I made the note card black so it's easier to see for the camera. And then what happens is when I take a crayon and rub across it, just like when we use those other texture sheets in class, see how I'm getting that texture in the rubbing? Well, you're going to get to make your own. All right. See if the camera wasn't picking that up. There we go. All right. So there's an example of it. You might have noticed at the bottom of my list of supplies, there's some other rubbings that I did there. All right. So just like these other ones that we used that were plastic, that were pre-made, we're going to make our own. So you're going to make some of those. And then what we're going to do is do a sample of each one. So for example, oops. Here is the rubbing and here is what the sheet looks like, right? So I just painted this background red so you could see it on camera better, and I used a black glue. You don't have to do that. This is just so you could see it. So here's what I made. I placed it under here. I used a crayon to do a rubbing. Now, I did all of those and then I assembled it into a book, and that part's not real hard. We'll do that at the end, so don't worry about making it into a book right now, okay? For today, what you're gonna do is you're gonna make 4 of these. You're gonna make 4 sample cards, more if you want, but for today, that's what's assigned, okay? So I'll just show you a couple more examples of ones that I made to get you some ideas, all right? One thing you're gonna have to do is once you make these sample sheets, you're gonna have to title them. Because if you were working on a project with someone, collaborating with them, or even just in your own work, you would wanna be able to reference it. So for example, if someone says, well, which sample did you want for something? Oh, the wood leaves one. Okay, well, they probably have an idea that it could be this one, right? It's just a way to name things so that you know what you're working with. All right, here's another one. All right, and what I did was I just used some, I colored some glue and I put a little dab of it, and I used the back side of a crayon. I just put the crayon onto the paper to get the glue on the paper. And I'll do some samples with you too. I'm just showing you first, okay? I call this a diagonal stitch because the lines are going diagonally to the paper, and it kind of looks like little stitches in cloth, doesn't it? That's just kind of how the glue came out. It was just kind of beaded. I don't know if you can see it real well. There you go. Line dot squares, because there's a line and then a dot in the middle of the lines. I think this one looks kind of like wood grain, like wood. That's what it looks like. Now here's a real basic one. And this is just fine to start with. Oops, it looks like I forgot to title this one. That's okay, I'll use this as my example when we get to that part. And here's what it looked like. You can see. Okay, again, I just made the background red so it was a little easier for the camera to pick it up. And then this one, I also dipped something into glue and then put it on the paper to get these raised. Let me see that. Areas. If you think you know what it was that I dipped into here, I'll give you a hint, it's plastic. And it's something probably a lot of you have. But if you think you know what it is, feel free to drop into my office hours and tell me what it is, and I'll let you know. This one I didn't name either. I think I was hoping one of you might be able to give a suggestion for a name for this one. Here's what it looks like. Okay, you see how some of these are higher than others? Some have more glue there. That's what's going to make it darker on here. Now, why are we making all of these? Well, because when we do another guided drawing, you're going to have these with you now at home, and you'll be able to use them just like we did in the Van Gogh drawings. If you weren't in one of my classes that did that drawing, don't worry about it. I'll show you towards the end of this lesson what we did with these, and you'll get an idea for it. But right now, all we need to concern ourselves with is making texture sheets that we will use in the future for other projects. So we're making our own art supplies. All right. So now, when I did something like this, the question is, how did I get it so even? Or these, right? Well, I could have you sit with a ruler and a pencil for a really long time, marking out a grid, right? Some boxes and squares so you can space everything evenly. But I wouldn't do that to you. There's an easier way. You can take a note card, okay? If you don't have a note card, get a piece of paper, and I'm going to show you first how to overcome not having some note cards, okay? So if you have note cards, just sit back for a minute. If you don't, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take your piece of paper. I'm going to lay it so that the corners, let's wait for the dot cam to catch that. There we go. You're going to line up your paper so that the corners are even here and hold it. You're going to run your finger back towards the fold and then out to each side. That's how you're going to get a nice, good fold without the paper scooching. See how nice and even it is? All right, so you're going to do that. So I've got my paper folded in half. I'm going to take one half of it and fold it into this middle line that I just made, all right? I'm going to do the same to the other piece. All right. I'm going to fold it. So right now what you have is you have it in 4 pieces. Okay. Now I'm going to open it up and fold it the long way in half. All right. Now what do I have? Well, I have 8 little squares. Now, what you're going to do is you can take a pencil if you want, and you can just, for yourself, to make it a little bit easier, mark out roughly where those lines are so you can see them. All right. Then you're going to take your scissors and you are going to cut just one out. Why just one? I will show you. Once you have that one cut out, okay, fold it in half so that, let's see, if you hold it straight up and down, it's going the tall way, okay? That's called portrait orientation. Fold it in half like it's bending over, all right? And then fold it side to side like this. right? And if you can do one more fold in half. So you'll end up with something that looks kind of like this, right? Try and get the seams as good as you can. You might have to use your fingernail a little bit. Open it up. All right, now see that grid that I created? I'm gonna make it fold a couple more times. I'm gonna make it, because I want my boxes to be a little smaller than they are. I'm folding, I hold it vertically, the tall way, portrait orientation. I'm gonna fold the left side into the middle line, the line of symmetry, and the right side into the middle line. Like that. Here we go. All right. And then I have got a pretty good grid. Now, why does this matter? Because some of your samples you're going to make, you're going to want to use the grid to lay everything out and get nice even spacing of your elements, like circles or squares. And you can't really do that if you're just kind of eyeballing it. So you're going to take this sheet now that has your grid on it. Make sure your lines are really crisp, really, really crisp. Right? The paper might start to look kind of bubbly or folded, or of course it looks folded, kind of rumpled where you're folding it. That's good. That's what you want. You want the paper to start to break down there. Now you're going to get your crayon. You need a short crayon, okay? So when I tell you guys, oh no, short crayons are great, here's an example of why. Now you're going to need to peel the paper off of it, okay? And then you're going to need to hold it like this in your hand. So if you set it down, pick it up with just your thumb and first finger. Now take your sheet of squares and your little sheet that has the grid on it. Put your sheet with the grid behind the other sheet. And then you're going to do a rubbing over it, right? You see what I'm doing? Now, why did I do this? Well, because I transferred this grid that I made on here to here without having to fold this one. Okay, so this is much, much quicker than measuring out each one of these or folding each one of these. So you're going to do that with each of your squares. You're going to put this behind it, right? And you will. This is, again, if you don't have a note card. Or have note cards, I should say. All right, so if you don't have note cards, take this time, hit pause if you need to, and do a rubbing so that you have a grid on each of these squares. Because this is what we're going to use to make our sample sheets on. All right, you're going to need to do this part of it. You can't skip this part of it. Won't work right. Now, if you have note cards, let me get my note cards out. I'm trying to give you guys the best light that I can here on my table while the daylight's coming right in this huge window. So I'm going to have to chase and kind of make it so that you can still see everything. I know there's a shadow that's starting to creep in, but I'm going to try and do it so that it doesn't affect your view. If it starts to affect your view, I'll just hit pause and wait for that shadow to finish moving through, okay? I just want to have the brightest light I can. If you have note cards, something like this, recipe card, a lined card, anything like that, but the same size, all right? You need several of them the same size. Take it and fold it. We'll hold it portrait orientation, so it's tall, not wide. And you are going to fold it in half, make it bend over. All right? Again, trap the edge once you have the corners lined up and run your finger out towards the seam, towards the fold, and then to each side. That will give you a nice clean line. Once you've done that, open it up, okay, and fold it the other way. So side to side, so it's even taller and skinnier looking. Well, even skinnier looking, I should say. It's not going to get taller. Oops, I didn't do that right and it didn't line up right. I should have done this. All right, there we go. So now I have 4 sections, right? Well, that's nice, but that's not going to help me create a complete grid. So I am going to fold each of these sides into the middle, right? So just a quarter of the way in. You see that? Here's my line of symmetry. I folded this edge into the middle line. Now I opened it up and I'm going to fold the other edge into the middle line. See how I had to kind of tell my paper where it's going to fold here? I had to help it with my right index finger so I could kind of start to get it right. There we go. All right, so now I have how many? I have 8 squares, or rectangles actually. Well, I don't want that. I want smaller squares. So I'm going to fold, okay, see if I have it portrait orientation again. I'm going to take the top half of this and fold that top edge into this middle line. You see what I did? Into the middle line. Now I'm going to turn it and do the same thing with the other edge. So I folded it down. I'm going to fold it up. It's just hard to do at this position. All right, there we go. Now what do I have? Well, I'll draw it with crayon, make it a little easier to see. I've got all these fold lines all over my note card. All right. You don't need to draw your fold lines in, but you can if you want to. I'm just trying to make it a little easier for you to see as we do this. So I'm running the crayon along the edge so that the camera can catch the edges of it too. Okay, so I have what, 16, yep, 16 squares, 4 times 4. So now I can start to get to the fun stuff, right? Now, for the people who didn't have note cards, I showed you how to make your grid on each of these. So you should have now 8 sections with a grid on it. When you do that, then take a scissors and cut them apart. Okay? So you will have 8 of these. You'll have 8, total of 8 of these, okay? For the people that have note cards, take your note cards, take your main note card with the grid and put it underneath another note card, okay? Hold them really flat and lightly rub your crayon over them so you can transfer that grid onto there. Right? Do that to, let's start with just maybe 4 of them, right? So make 4. So there's 1. Here's 2. Remember to hold your crayon sideways. 2. Oh, where are my other note cards? This one's already got some scribbles on it from me, but that's okay. 3. 'Oops, I need another one. 4. Oopsies, I slipped a little bit. See if I can get that lined up to get it back in there. Hopefully I can. All right, now why does it matter that we have a grid on here? Well, because repeating patterns, right, are made with grids. So this is a way for us to make sure that our patterns repeat themselves nicely. I'm just going to move some of these out of the way. I'm just going to use this one for now, all right? So you're gonna take, once you do that and you get them all set up with the grid on them, I'm gonna take one of them and you are going to get either your tape or your glue, whichever you're working with. I'm gonna use some clear tape just because it gets nice clean edges. I'm gonna take a piece of the tape and I'm going to lay it right over, so this line here is in the middle of the tape. All right, I'm not sure if you can see that real well on camera, but I've got that piece of tape going right over this line here. Ooh, maybe the light's getting a little too bright. Okay. I am going to then snip the edges off of this because if I fold the tape under, it will show up in my rubbing. So for each of these lines, I'm going to run a piece of tape right over them. All right, so here I go with the next one. Right in the middle. See that? I'm holding that. The edges. I'll do this again with another kind of tape. So if this isn't quite making sense to you, just give me a minute and I'll show you again with a different kind of tape. Oops, I almost folded it under. We don't do that. We snip it off. There we go. I'm going to do it across a long way. Oh, it is so bright in here that I'm even having trouble seeing. All right, here we go. 2 more pieces on here. So 1. One more on here and then I'll show you how it looks. Right smack in the middle of this line. All right. Make sure you rub your tape so it sticks really well. All right. Now, what did I just accomplish? Well, let's see. Here's a piece of paper. All right, I can feel where my card is under there. Going to rub the edge of a crayon against it. There we go. There's my texture rubbing. Now, you can see where this one was a little bit off, so I don't have as perfect of a grid. Try to get it as close as you can to, you know, a perfect grid, but I know that none of them are going to be perfect. So I wanted you to see what clear tape looks like. Now I'm going to do one with masking tape. All right. Masking tape has a little bit of crayon on the edge of it. Don't worry about that. I'm laying it more or less right over this line. You can put it wherever you want on one of the lines. This is just to help you space out evenly where you're putting things. Now with masking tape, you might be able to just kind of tear it against the paper. You might not. You might have to still do it with the scissors. You can make all of the tape going in one direction if you want, or you can make it going in multiple directions. I think I'm going to put this one right here. I'm going to overlap them. Okay. The main thing is that I want you to have a pattern that repeats itself. I do not want you to have just stuff stuck to the paper to do a rubbing on. We can do something like that, but later. If you want to do some extra ones, that's fine. But I'd like you to finish, how about 4? I think that's the number I said earlier in this lesson. Let's get 4 done today. Then the next class we can work on 4 more. All right, now that's not a whole lot of stuff on this paper. Let's see what happens when I don't do many things on here. Oh. Oops, that extra ridge was because I had another note card under there. That's what created that problem. So let me try that again. Uh-oh, I'm losing it to the shadows. Let me see if I can move this a little bit. There we go. See this right here? That's not a very exciting rubbing texture, is it? No. So I should have done more on this one. So please don't show me that look anything like that one. Now, let's see. Here's my last one that I've got left. I'll do it here in the sun where you can see it. You can also take your glue, make sure there's nothing on the tip of it, right? If there's any dried up glue there, make sure you get it off completely. And twist your glue to open it up. You'll see a little space in here. See that space? You don't want it all the way open. You want it most of the way open, all right? And I'm going to, on each one of these little lines here, I'm going to put a dot. Notice how I've got my bottle kind of sideways? That helps me control the speed of the glue. If I had it straight up and down, there'd be more gravity pushing down on it and glue would be coming out faster, but I don't want it any faster than what I'm going right now. Now there would be a line right there, wouldn't there? You know where the grid ends? So I'm going to put little dots there too. Okay, now I'm using my grid to space these all out, right? Now what do I do next? Well, remember that this is just some extra scribble because I'm reusing paper because I don't want to waste it. And I am going to, let's see, I think I'm going to put some circles in here over each of these X's. So watch this. I want to go. Okay. Now I would only see half of it here, right? Because it's right in the middle there. Now it's not going to be perfect, but that's kind of part of the fun of these texture pieces, right? They all have a unity because it's a repeating pattern. But there's also some variety because nothing's really perfect. There's a little bit of variation. Now the glue, obviously I won't be able to see what the rubbing looks like right away. But I want you to just get to the point of having 4 of these little cards, right? That either you cut the paper apart and made the little card, or you had a couple of cards. I want you to get 4 of these finished for this class period. If you want to do some more, that's perfectly fine. If you want to experiment with additional materials, that's okay too. But for this class period, please get 4 done, and we'll work on it again next class period. Hope you enjoy it. See you next time.